January 1944, Dover, England. German reconnaissance pilots returning from missions over the English Channel reported something that sent shockwaves through Wehrmacht intelligence headquarters. An entire American army group was massing directly across from Calais. Hundreds of tanks lined up in neat rows. Landing craft filled the harbours. Fuel depots sprawled across the countryside. Radio traffic buzzed with constant military communications. The invasion force was unmistakable. There was just one problem. None of it was real. The greatest deception operation in military history was unfolding, and German high command was falling for it completely. What they were seeing through their binoculars and camera lenses would determine where Hitler positioned his panzer divisions, and that decision would decide the fate of D-Day before a single Allied soldier set foot on Normandy's beaches. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Germany's Atlantic wall stretched from Norway to Spain, but Hitler couldn't defend everything equally. He had to guess where the invasion would come. If he guessed right and concentrated his forces at the actual landing site, the Allies would face a slaughter that could doom the entire operation. If he guessed wrong, the invasion might succeed. Everything depended on making Hitler guess wrong. The deception began with a simple mathematical problem. The Allies needed to convince Germany that they possessed far more divisions than actually existed. German intelligence had to believe the invasion force was so massive it could strike multiple locations simultaneously. Only then would Hitler split his defences instead of concentrating everything at Normandy. Enter Operation Fortitude, a deception so elaborate it involved two entire fictional army groups, thousands of fake installations, and the manipulation of every intelligence channel Germany possessed. The operation split into two parts: Fortitude North, suggesting an invasion of Norway, and Fortitude South, pointing toward Pas de Calais as the main target. Fortitude North was the opening act. The plan created an entirely fictional British Fourth Army in Scotland, supposedly preparing to invade Norway with Soviet support. German intelligence monitored Allied radio traffic constantly, so British signalmen broadcast thousands of fake messages. Units that didn't exist reported to headquarters that didn't exist about operations that would never happen. The radio deception required meticulous detail. Each fictional unit transmitted with consistent radio operators whose individual sending styles, called their fist, could be recognized by German listeners. Fake supply requisitions went out for Arctic equipment. Imaginary soccer matches were scheduled between non-existent regiments. The Fourth Army even had a fictional commander, Lieutenant General Andrew Thorne, who was very real but commanding phantom forces. The deception worked because the Germans couldn't verify it. Norway's garrison nervously reported the build-up to Berlin. Hitler, paranoid about Norwegian defences and the possibility of losing Swedish iron ore, kept 17 divisions in Norway throughout 1944. 17 divisions that could have been in France, pinned down by an army that existed only in radio waves and German imagination. But Fortitude North was merely the setup. The main event was Fortitude South, and it required building an entire ghost army visible from the air. The 1st United States Army Group, FUSAG, materialized in southeastern England throughout spring 1944. German reconnaissance flights photographed exactly what they expected to see: a massive invasion force preparing to strike across the narrowest part of the channel directly at Calais. The evidence was overwhelming. Hundreds of tanks and trucks lined up in assembly areas. Landing craft crowded every harbour and estuary. Tent cities sprawled across Kent and Sussex. Oil storage facilities dotted the coastline. None of it could withstand close inspection. The tanks were inflatable rubber, manufactured in British factories and pumped full of air. When wind blew them over, teams rushed out to stake them down properly. The landing craft were wooden frames covered with painted canvas, floating in harbours, but incapable of crossing a bathtub, much less the English Channel. The oil storage tanks were elaborate scaffolding covered with canvas and painted to look real from above. The Ghost Army, officially the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, consisted of artists, designers and engineers recruited from art schools and advertising agencies. They built a fake war with the same techniques used to create Hollywood movie sets. Their commanding officer was Colonel Hilton Howell Rayleigh, but the real genius came from the soldiers themselves, fashion designers who understood how fabric draped, artists who knew how light and shadow created illusion, sound engineers who could recreate the acoustics of armor columns. The inflatable tanks were masterpieces of deception. Each one weighed just 60 pounds and could be inflated by 2 men in 5 minutes. From 2,000 feet, the altitude German reconnaissance flew at, they looked identical to real Sherman tanks. The deceivers added meticulous details, fake track marks in the mud, bogus camouflage netting that was slightly too effective, making them seem like someone was trying hard to hide them. German photo analysts, seeing what they expected to see, counted them as real. But visual deception alone wouldn't convince the Germans. Military deception requires multiple intelligence channels telling the same story. If German spies, radio intercepts, and aerial reconnaissance all reported the same fake army, it became real in German minds. The radio deception for Fusag dwarfed anything attempted for Fortitude North. Real radio operators transmitted thousands of fake messages daily. An entire fake communications network sprang to life, complete with proper military procedures, authentication codes, and security protocols. The messages were deliberately designed to be partially decoded by German intelligence. Radio operators complained about equipment failures, requested supplies, coordinated training exercises, and maintained the constant chatter of a real army preparing for battle. Traffic analysis, the German method of tracking unit locations and strengths through radio patterns, showed exactly what the deceivers wanted. A corps headquarters here, division headquarters there, supply units, engineering battalions, all the components of a real army group. The Germans plotted these units on maps, building a picture of Allied strength that was completely fictional. The deception required one more critical element, a commander the Germans would believe capable of leading the invasion. The Allies chose General George S. Patton, arguably America's most aggressive and famous commander. Patton had led forces in North Africa and Sicily. The Germans respected and feared him. Intelligence indicated Hitler himself considered Patton the Allies' most dangerous general. In January 1944, Patton was publicly assigned to command Fusag. He made appearances throughout southeastern England, visiting his phantom troops. German spies dutifully reported his movements. When Patton attended a public function, newspapers covered it, carefully mentioning his position with Fusag. The Germans, monitoring Allied press, noted every appearance. Patton privately chafed at the assignment. He wanted to lead real soldiers in real battles, not parade around England for German spies. But his role was crucial. As long as the Germans believed Patton commanded Fusag, they believed Fusag would lead the invasion. And since Fusag was positioned opposite Calais, the invasion must be targeting Calais. The next layer of deception involved feeding Germany's spy network. British counterintelligence, MI5, had achieved something unprecedented. They controlled every German agent operating in Britain. Through the double-cross system, captured German spies had been turned, executed, or replaced with British agents. Every intelligence report Germany received from Britain was written in London by MI5. These double agents provided the crucial confirmation of Fusag's existence. Agent Garbo, a Spaniard named Juan Pujol Garcia, was Germany's most trusted spy in Britain. In reality, he worked for the British and never left England, inventing a network of 27 fictional sub-agents. His reports to Germany were masterworks of deception, mixing true but harmless information with critical lies. Garbo confirmed Fusag's existence, described its preparations, and reported Patton's movements. His reports matched what German reconnaissance saw and what radio intercepts suggested. From Germany's perspective, multiple independent sources confirmed the same facts. The Ghost Army became real in German minds because every intelligence channel told the same story. The deception extended to actual military units as well. Real divisions training for D-Day conducted exercises far from their actual assembly areas. When they moved to embarkation ports, they travelled at night under strict radio silence. Meanwhile, Fusag units maintained their radio presence in southeastern England. German intelligence tracked unit movements through radio traffic and consistently placed Allied divisions in the wrong locations. Airfield construction added another layer of believability. Engineers built dummy airfields near Fusag's concentration areas, complete with fake hangars and wooden aircraft. Real airfields near the actual invasion staging areas in southwestern England remained carefully camouflaged. German photo analysts counted aircraft at the dummy fields and concluded the main air concentration was opposite Calais. The deception even included dummy lighting. At night, fake lights suggested activity around the ghost installations. Carefully controlled light discipline at real bases made them invisible from above, while the fake bases lit up with the glow of generators and vehicle headlights. German night reconnaissance reported exactly what they were meant to see. Physical deception was only part of the illusion. The Allies manipulated German assumptions about invasion logistics. A cross-channel invasion required massive supply build-up, fuel, ammunition, food, medical supplies. The closer the invasion target, the shorter the supply lines, the easier the logistics. Calais was 20 miles from Dover, the shortest channel crossing. Normandy was 100 miles from the nearest English ports. German military thinking, based on sound logistics, concluded the invasion must come at the shortest crossing point. Allied planners exploited this assumption by making their fake build-up in southeastern England overwhelming obvious, while hiding the real build-up in southwestern England. The Germans saw what they expected to see in the place that made the most sense. Their own military logic became a weapon used against them. By May 1944, German intelligence had fallen completely for the deception. Wehrmacht maps showed Fusag as real, positioned exactly where the double agents and radio traffic placed it. The German 15th Army, their strongest force in France, sat at Pas de Calais waiting for Patton's Phantom divisions, June 6, 1944. Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, 150 miles from where Germany expected them. The landings achieved tactical surprise despite massive German fortifications. Hitler and his generals waited for the real invasion at Calais. The German 15th Army, 200,000 men and hundreds of tanks, remained at Pas de Calais for weeks after D-Day, pinned down by a ghost army. The deception didn't end on June 6th. That was its most brilliant aspect. Allied commanders knew the first days after landing would be crucial. If Germany rushed all available forces to Normandy immediately, they might crush the beachhead. The solution was to continue the deception, making the Germans believe Normandy was a feint and the main invasion was still coming at Calais. Fusag remained active for weeks after D-Day. Radio traffic continued. Double agents reported the army group was waiting for favorable conditions. Patton remained visibly in England until late June, then was ostentatiously transferred to command the Third Army, a real force that activated in France. The cover story explained Fusag's delay. Patton had been moved to exploit the Normandy breakthrough, but Fusag would strike Calais once Normandy drew German reserves away. German High Command bought it completely. Hitler kept the 15th Army at Calais until late July, nearly 8 weeks after D-Day. By then, Allied forces had broken out from Normandy and were racing across France. The divisions that could have counterattacked in the critical first week sat idle, waiting for an invasion that never came. The mathematical impact of the deception was staggering. The German 15th Army had 22 divisions. If even half had been at Normandy on June the 6th, D-Day might have failed. The initial landing force put 150,000 men ashore on the first day, but they were vulnerable, exposed on beaches with limited heavy equipment. 11 fresh German divisions counter-attacking in the first 48 hours could have driven the Allies back into the sea. Instead, German reserves arrived piecemeal, too late and too weak. The Normandy defenders fought essentially alone, while the 15th Army sat paralyzed by phantom threats. When those divisions finally moved to Normandy in August, Allied forces were already breaking out. The divisions that could have won the battle in June were destroyed in a futile attempt to contain a breakthrough in August. Historians have calculated the impact. General Eisenhower later stated that without Operation Fortitude, D-Day casualties might have been 3 times higher. The operation potentially saved 20,000 Allied lives in the first week alone. British intelligence estimated the deception delayed German reinforcement by 6 weeks, the difference between success and catastrophic failure. The cost of the entire operation was microscopic compared to its impact. The inflatable tanks cost less than $200 each. The total budget for Fortitude was approximately $1 million in 1944 dollars. That investment pinned down 200,000 German troops and hundreds of tanks for 2 months. No artillery barrage, no bombing campaign, no military operation has ever achieved such return on investment. The psychological impact on German command was equally devastating. When the truth became clear, German officers realized their intelligence had been compromised at every level. They had been fighting shadows while real threats developed elsewhere. The paranoia this created affected German military decision-making for the rest of the war. Hitler trusted his intelligence services less, making decisions based on intuition rather than data, leading to increasingly erratic strategies. The operation also represented a revolution in military deception. Previous wars had used deception tactically: camouflage, false radio messages, misleading documents. Fortitude was strategic deception on an unprecedented scale, coordinating intelligence manipulation, physical deception, and psychological warfare across multiple countries and intelligence services for 18 months. The success required unprecedented cooperation. British MI5, American OSS, Soviet intelligence, Polish resistance, French underground all contributed pieces to the puzzle. Double agents in Britain, resistance fighters reporting fake buildups in France, Soviet deception suggesting Allied Soviet coordination in Norway, all synchronized to tell one coherent lie. After the war, the full scope of Fortitude remained classified for decades. The double agents continued working through 1945, deceiving Germany about other operations. Some weren't revealed until the 1970s. Garbo's identity wasn't confirmed until 1984. The Ghost Army's existence wasn't officially acknowledged until 1996. When the story finally emerged, it revolutionized understanding of D-Day. Historians had long wondered why German response to the landings was so disorganized. The answer lay not in German incompetence, but in Allied brilliance. The German army that didn't respond to Normandy was real. The army they were watching at Calais was the phantom. The legacy of Operation Fortitude extends beyond World War II. Modern military deception operations draw directly from its lessons. The principle remains: make the enemy see what they expect to see, confirm their biases, feed their assumptions. Give them intelligence from multiple sources that tells the same false story. Create a reality in the enemy's mind more powerful than actual reality. The men who created Fortitude never fired a shot in combat, yet they were among the war's most effective weapons. The artists who designed inflatable tanks, the radio operators who transmitted phantom messages, the intelligence officers who crafted elaborate lies, the double agents who fed false information to Germany, all of them altered the course of history more effectively than many combat divisions. The operation proved a profound truth. In modern warfare, perception can be more powerful than reality. The German 15th Army was destroyed not by bombs or bullets, but by information. They lost the battle before it began, defeated by an enemy that didn't exist, pinned down by threats that were never real. When the last inflatable tank was deflated and packed away, when the final fake radio message was transmitted, when the double agents sent their last reports, Operation Fortitude's Ghost Army had accomplished its mission. They had created a perfect illusion and held it for 6 critical months, convincing an entire military command that fiction was fact. The German soldiers waiting at Calais never knew they were watching shadows. They scanned the horizon for an invasion fleet that would never come, defending against an army that existed only in imagination. They remained at their posts while the real battle was lost 150 miles away, loyal to the end, but guarding against a threat that was never real. Operation Fortitude stands as testament to a principle that remains relevant. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the one that destroys the most, but the one that creates the most effective illusion. The Ghost Army that didn't exist won one of history's most important battles without firing a single shot, proving that in war, as in life, what the enemy believes can be more important than what actually is.